Hi, welcome to another exciting episode of the Andre The Beast Crayton Show. Today is another outstanding show. Let me take you down this rabbit hole. Conspiracy theory, almost. Imagine what it must be like to be a victim and then later be accused as the one who started the altercation. And more importantly, seeing your whole world get twisted upside down, almost like a, let's call it what it is, conspiracy theory. But let's use another word. Let's use control. Let's use targeted individuals. Today on the show, we have a young lady whose story is truly one that most individuals would find hard to believe. So I'm going to start this off like this. Listen with compassion. Put yourself in her shoes and ask yourself the most important question of all. What would you do if it was you? Today on the show, we have the new podcast that's taken the social media by storm. A podcast based on a true story from the best-selling book, Unveiling Shadows. The author is here today to tell us how all of this unveiling had come to life. I'd like to welcome Kimberly Mosby to the show. Welcome up, Kimberly.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Let's start from the beginning. Who is Kimberly Mosby?
Well, I am very self-sufficient, very independent. I grew up in Salt Lake City, Utah. I opened two companies. The company I still have is called Gateway Title Insurance Agency. So I've owned this company for 14 years. It's a real estate company. I put myself through school to get here, worked a full-time job, went to school full-time, raised three kids full-time by myself. And I worked for First American Title Insurance Agency, and I was their cash cow. But when the credit crisis hit in 2008, 2009, they wanted to cut my commissions and have me work 5 days a week and only get paid for 4. So during that time, I had built up my clientele. And so I went to my clients and I said, what do you think if I were to open my own title company, would you come with me? And half of them were like, you're crazy. And then the other half were very supportive. And they said, well, you can only go up from here because the market was already at rock bottom. And so I've been here for 14. I've owned Gateway for 14 years.
So you sound like you created success. Let's put it like that. You created success. Now,
I have 2 bachelor's degrees. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's go to let's move forward a little bit.
Okay.
You write a book.
Mm-hmm.
How did the book come to be?
It was part of my betrayal trauma. It was part of my therapy because when I was served the petition to be put into an insane asylum for 360 days against my will, they couldn't get the crazy card to stick, so they went with the she's an addict card. And my attorney made me take a plea deal of going into a drug rehabilitation center for 30 days as a partially hospitalized patient. And during that time, they knew I was court ordered or forced to be there because I wasn't an addict.
Mm.
And so my therapist in that program is my therapist today. And so she said, you have to get pen to paper, Kim, because if you don't, you're not going to make it through this. It's going to be part of the process. If you want to write a book about it, she said, I think that's great. But we also do EMDR therapy, which is trauma-based therapy. It allows me to talk about the situation without getting overly emotional about it. So
let's go back a little bit. But what led to, what were the courses of events that led to you even being put in that situation? Were you attacked? Did somebody beat you up? Did you get robbed? I mean, like, you have to do something to even get to the legal system.
Right. Okay. So in the beginning of the pandemic, I took to Twitter and I spoke out against the establishment. So I basically said Bill Gates, the WHO, and the WEF don't have the right to dictate my health rights, right? So I didn't get the vaccination. And that's when things got really heated between my parents and I, because they were pushing me to get it. And I kept telling them, no, I don't even get the flu vax. So why would I stick that in my body? And they haven't even tested it. So we would get in arguments in restaurants, in public places, them trying to force me to take it. And I would not comply. And then that's when things started going downhill. So my aunt and uncle and I were the only three in our family that didn't get the COVID vaccination. And then we started becoming ostracized.
Hold down a minute, Kim. This sounds crazy as hell.
I don't know, from the family.
So you're a grown ass woman.
I know. And nobody got me here but me.
Your parents are telling you that you're going to get the vaccination and you rebel against a vaccination. You go up against the establishment. Who is the establishment? You mentioned Bill Gates. Who's the establishment?
Well, I say they, but I say the government, basically billionaires, the elites, which if there's one in each state that's very highly politically connected and extremely wealthy, that would be my parents. And so I do not talk to them anymore, and I do not talk to my grown children. So
let me back up, because I gotta put my head in the audience's head. So yeah. You come from money. Yeah. I guess your parents felt like what kind of harm would it have caused them? Because let's get real. Evidently, this is about them and their status in the community or the politicians or whatever.
Yeah.
What does that have to do with you?
Exactly. Yeah. So in one of my therapy sessions, my therapist asked me, has anybody asked you if your mom is a narcissist? And I went, oh, that makes complete sense. And they didn't pay for my schooling. I put myself through school. I never asked them for money. They never gave me anything. But I think what was happening was my two adult children were telling my parents that I was doing all of this stuff and that I was going to lose my business and that I was going to lose my house. And then Cindy got involved. We could probably bleep her name out. Then my mother got involved and, tried to control, to protect her grandchildren or whatever. I'm not a narcissist, so I don't know how they think, but I definitely was targeted. What
made your therapist suggest that to look at your mom in a narcissistic, that may be a narcissist? What made the therapist even approach you with that type of question?
Some of the behaviors that I was telling her about in in some of our therapy sessions had signs of her, wanting to control, basically, yeah, whatever narcissists do.
What about your dad?
So he is actually my stepfather, so that he's not my biological father. But I've asked him a few times when they were together why he was still married to her.
So let's go back a little bit. You mentioned your sons.
Yeah.
Let's go back deeper. So okay, so you don't. I'm trying to keep everything in the line so people can understand the show.
Yeah.
So this all started with a vaccination,
Yeah.
political ties, money, and reputation. So how did you wind up? How did they use their political influences and money to even get you into the situation that you was going to have to be under confinement in a mental institution? How did that even happen in the system?
Right. Okay. So if you're highly politically connected and you're extremely wealthy, they can reach out to the medical crisis outreach team, or they can reach out to the community outreach program, and every community has one. So we call them COPS. And they can tell those people anything about you that they want without actually coming to you and speaking to you directly. And the only reason I know that they've found that they reached out to the medical crisis outreach team is because I pulled my records from St. Mark's Hospital when they did take me to St. Mark's Hospital. And then I found that out at that time. Because what had happened was I was walking down an alleyway to go get a bicycle. I stopped between the alleyway and a guy's garage, and I just stood there because some of the stuff looked like my sister's stuff in the garage. So I was like, oh, that looks like Steph's stuff. And this guy came out, ran after me, like screaming, yelling. He put me in a headlock, slapped me across the face, and I ducked and got out. I ran down the street, the alleyway, and there just happened to be a police car coming by. So I flagged the police car down and I said, I just was attacked in the alleyway by this guy. And they're like, are you okay? And I said, no. I said, I'm not afraid of too many things, but yeah, that terrified me. And so they went and talked to the gentleman because I said I wanted to press charges. They came back and turned it around on me and told me I was the one that wasn't acting right. And they said, you have two choices. You can go to the U of U psych ward, or you can go to St. Mark's Hospital for observation.
What did they accuse you of? That you attacked him?
They didn't accuse me of anything. They just said you're not acting right. So then they took me to St. Mark's Hospital. This is how far money can get you, okay? And politics, being very politically connected. And they kept me there for 9 hours. And I kept telling them, you're holding me here against my will. I want to go. You are taking away my civil rights, and I don't need to be here. So about the 9th hour, I ran out the door or tried to run. And then this security guy came, was about 6'2", grabbed me and threw me on a gurney. And then he said, okay, you get a pink slip. And I was like, what's that? And he's like, you get a blue slip. And I said, okay, which is it? I feel like I'm in high school. Do I get a pink slip or do I get a blue slip? And what is that? So then they transported me from St. Mark's Hospital to Lakeview Behavioral Center. And they kept me there for 24 hours. I had to go through some class. And then they gave me an MRI, and the nurse came back and said, "Oh, your MRI looks immaculate." And then they let me go.
Why did they give you an MRI? Why did they give you a phone call? You didn't get anything. You just stayed.
I got a phone call, and I called into the office and said, "I'm not going to be into the office today." And obviously we have caller ID. So the people at the office said, "Okay, we'll see you tomorrow," whatever.
Why would you call the office with something traumatic like that happened to you? I mean, why didn't you call your parents or your brother or your sister or somebody?
Well, because I already knew at that point my parents were involved. Like I knew it. So I didn't list any emergency contact on the paperwork with St. Mark's, but they ended up getting it, which is a violation of HIPAA. Like there's so many things wrong with our public health system, our law enforcement system. And yeah, so I didn't list anybody. I'm like, I don't know who to trust at this point. I don't know who's friend. I don't know who's foe, right?
Mhm.
And so then I was released.
So you get out of the confinement.
That was the end of August of 2023. So that was just last year.
Did you reach out to a lawyer or anybody? Did you? How did you even relate to your? What did you do? I mean, this is mind-boggling to me. I can't see somebody detaining me and me not contacting a lawyer for wrongful detainment, violating
Correct.
my rights.
So that was the point. I knew that my civil rights were violated, and it took me a minute because I believe that most people do not know what their civil rights are and how to protect them and how to identify a perpetrator when they see it, as opposed to someone just telling you you're paranoid or whatever. So I ended up making a call to the FBI. I turned in a case federally. Then nothing happened, so I called the local FBI agency. Then I went down to see the FBI agent here off of Amelia Earhart Drive. And the agent that came down to talk to me after I told him everything that was happening, he looked at me and said, "Do you want to know what I would do if I've been targeted?" And I looked at him and I said, "What?" And he said, "I'd get a private investigator and do some forensic testing, take your water, if they were contaminating your water, into AURP.
What's that?
AURP is it's like a testing thing, like they test chemicals or do urinalysis or whatever. But I just looked at him and I said, "Okay, I already have hired a private investigator, and, and that's it." So then I was served a subpoena in September. So that happened in August. I was served the subpoena in September to appear in court for my parents serving, going to their commissioner friend. And that was to have my civil rights taken away for 360 days when they were trying to get me institutionalized against my will. So I went up to Huntsman Behavioral Center, which is where my court hearing was, which I thought was really odd. Like, why do I have to be not in a courtroom if I'm fighting for my civil rights? And when I was there, obviously my parents were there too. That's when I walked into the room and the commissioner saw me when it was my case time and said, "Well, you're obviously not here for mental health issues. You're here for drug addiction." And I said, "Well, I guess." And she said, "Do you have counsel?" And I said, "I've been asking for a public defender. I've been denied in my requests." And she looked at me and said, well, I'm going to delay this case for 2 weeks. You need to get an attorney and you need to have 2 essential treatment reviews.
Okay, let's hold that for a second. This sounds truly like
A nightmare.
sounds more like an X-File case.
Yeah.
So the question is, were you on drugs? Have you ever used drugs? Have you ever been under the influence of drugs?
I experimented with drugs and they took it from 0 to 1,000 in about 30 seconds.
So when you say experimented with drugs, I'm just trying to take my mind into the audience's mind.
Yep.
Now you're being accused. Let's call it what it is, accused. Not
Yes.
guilty.
Yeah.
But you openly are saying that you have experimented with drugs. Were there any type of drugs that would validate your parents requesting that this takes place? Like we hear things about weed. People say, oh, weed doesn't cause this. We know different things with psychedelics and hallucinogens and so forth. What kind of drugs were you experimenting with? Because I know the viewers are going to ask.
Yes. So I have experimented with psilocybin, which is mushrooms, and they have thousands of tests on the benefits of microdosing. So I'm not a person that's not going to be honest with someone. So if they ask me, well, did you experiment with methamphetamine? And I say yes, then that was probably the cause for their concern. But I think that they should have, talked to me about it instead of jumping to conclusions and then telling people behind my back stuff that I didn't even do. So
they try to say that the situation that happened in the alley, because this is where it really started at, to be honest.
Yeah.
Are they trying to say that maybe you had experimented with hallucinogenics and that none of this actually took place, that this was all a figment of your imagination? And more importantly, were you under the influence while you was walking through the alley?
No. And so the cop even asked me that. He's like, well, what are you on? Are you on meth or something? And because the cops are part of this program. And I looked at him and said, no. And I hadn't even done anything for, experimenting with something that someone brings to you and asks you if you want to try it versus going out and actually procuring it and purchasing it are 2 totally different things, right? Mm-hmm. So I stopped talking to the cops. I said, I don't have to talk to you anymore. I'm not answering any questions without an attorney. And they make you take a pee test when they get you to the hospital. There was nothing, everything was negative. That's why I pulled my records, because I'm like, someone's going to pay for what they're doing to me because this is harassment. And then when my attorney made me take a plea deal to get me out of going into the mental institution.
What grounds did they even have to put you in there? This is right now, this is all hearsay.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Well, I'm not a lawyer, so I'm just assuming this is hearsay because you just said you did test and you came back negative. So basically, this is hearsay. They're going by. Let me rephrase. How do you know that it was your parents in the system or the what did you call it? The organization that
the establishment
that whose hand was in the mix? Because right now you don't even know where this information is coming from. Right now you're just dealing with the fact that 2 police officers bring you you went to jail, right?
No, I didn't go to jail. They couldn't take me to jail. They just said I wasn't acting right, that I was acting like unstable for whatever reason. I just had been attacked, okay? And so obviously someone's going to be shaken up and like, I can't believe that just happened. And then they give you the option because they think that I'm on drugs or something. to take me to U of U Behavioral Center or St. Mark's Hospital for observation. And I just knew at that point it was, like a game, like it was like a Hunger Game.
So now
So
you
I
end
just,
up getting served from your parents, and you're in front of the courts, and the courts give you the option of taking a plea agreement. A plea agreement is either go to the place for so many days or get treatment. Is that what it was?
well, so I went to the first hearing and the commissioner said to me, I'm going to delay this case for 2 weeks. You need to obtain counsel, which means get legal representation, and you need to have 2 essential treatment reviews. So that means I had to go to psychologists to have them like deem me sane, and my attorney's retainer was 30,000, and the first essential treatment review was $4,000, and that was from a medical psychologist. And then the second one, I had to hurry and do because I only had 10 days to get all this stuff together. So I did all of that.
You had this kind of money? That's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money. And I knew that I wasn't the only person that this happened to. There are many people out there that didn't have the mental fortitude or the financial means to fight it. And then that became my call of action to bring awareness to this nefarious program. So it's yeah, like.
Didn't you ask for a public defender at first with the judge, and he didn't? Why did he not deem you a public defender? Did he know your financial? What was your financial resources? Did you have the money?
Yeah, I am very good at saving, and it's a good thing. But yeah.
So you
like,
end up spending the $40,000 for the attorneys, and you still wind up taking a plea agreement. I don't understand how that could even plan out with that kind of money.
I told him that I didn't want to, but he was like, it's best if you keep yourself out of the courtroom as much as possible. So let's go ahead and do their plea deal that their attorney, because my parents' attorney was asking for this. So they're like, they want you to go into an addiction recovery center for 45 days. I said, look, I'm not going to do that. I'm trying to run a business. They're taking time away from me being able to do that. And I said, I'll do a 30-day program, but the only 30-day program they had was being a partially hospitalized patient in an addiction recovery center for 30 days. So my parents just kept pushing. And my aunt and uncle were like, why won't they just let this go? Why aren't they talking to you about this, first of all? Why are they assuming all of this stuff? And yeah. So that's a very good question. Even I, to this day, am wondering. So
I understand. I'm trying to understand what was the bigger picture here, because I just find it, and nobody knows the story better than you. That's why you wrote the podcast. I'm on the outside looking in, but based on the story that you're telling me, it has to be more than just somebody coming after you because you didn't take a COVID test. I mean, to me,
COVID shot. Yeah.
COVID shot. I mean, like, what do you really think the big picture was here? Why was you targeted? Because it just doesn't add up that somebody would go out of their way to try to put you in a mental hospital.
Yeah.
Prove to the judge that you have an addiction, unless you have an addiction, which you clearly say you don't have an addiction. Out of your own mouth, what do you think is the real underlying reason that you were targeted? Because average people will be like, it's got to be something more than just getting the vaccination. Are your parents afraid you're going to take some money from them? Do they got hidden secrets that only you know about, or what?
They wanted, I think that they knew during this process of not complying, okay, they wanted me out of the way and they wanted me to STFU. And I would not do either. What?
STF, ST.
FU?
Yeah, what is that?
It means shut the fuck up. They wanted me to shut the fuck up.
But shut the fuck up for what? What did you have on them that they wanted you to shut up? It can't be just a COVID shot.
Right? I'm not sure. But I wouldn't comply, and they were trying to make me. And if one of your parents is a narcissist and you're not doing what they want you to do, then they're going to force you to do it. And they'll take any means necessary to do that.
Do you have?
And so I got a good therapist and a book out of the deal. So I had to remain positive about the whole situation. And instead of calling it group therapy, when I would have to be there 4 hours a day for 30 days, I referred to it as class, and tried to get the best, tried to remain optimistic and learn stuff during the process.
What do you think? I mean, when you say shut the fuck up, I mean, you've been in therapy long enough and working with your therapist and stuff. I mean,
yeah. And so that's the thing. I've been in therapy. None of these other people go to therapy. And the reason I was in therapy is because I lost my daughter 9 years ago to metastasized breast cancer when she was 23 years old. And I took care of her and watched her suffer for 4 years while taking care of her until she passed away. So if there were any time in my whole life that I was going to become a drug addict, it would have been after I lost her.
is that what they was trying to use against you? The fact that you had lost your daughter, and that was the reason why they suspected that you may be under the influence most of the time?
That's a possibility. But the other portion of that is 2 years into COVID, or I call it the pandemic, interest rates went from 3 to 6% in 1 week. And my business came to a screeching halt, basically. And there's not one mortgage person or real estate agent or title business owner that will tell you the same thing. There were probably a lot of people that went out of business. But I'm a working owner, so thank goodness for that.
How do you recover? I mean, you wrote a book.
I wrote a book, yeah.
Did the podcast. How are you changing your life around? And more importantly, do you still consider yourself a targeted individual?
Yes, because targeted individual they'll use several different modes. So they'll do 24/7 surveillance. So if these people, if they reach out to the community outreach program, and they'll tell you that this person's on drugs, she's crazy, she's not mentally stable, they'll tell them whatever. So with the 24-hour surveillance, the physical attack in the alleyway, they'll do targeted noise harassment with like really loud mufflers to try to intimidate you, to get you to break emotionally and psychologically, which is what I told that private investigator. I said, look, I'm a target. They are trying to basically break me down mentally. And I said, do you know what that's like? They do it in the military all the time. And he says, no, they don't. And I said, yeah, they do. They put you in the military, they break you down to your lowest form, and then they try to rebuild you. And I'm here to tell you that there is not one or very many military personnel that could have gone through what I have gone through and come out the other side okay.
Before we wrap up,
Mm-hmm.
I'm still trying to get a little bit of clarity. Why you? Why were you the targeted individual? That's what I'm trying to get some clarity on. Why do you think it was you? You said you shut the fuck up. That's deep when somebody says shut the fuck up.
Yep.
All these people in your family to
Turn against me.
turn against you. You gotta have some there. You gotta have some ideal of what the bigger picture. I mean, this almost sounds like a Aaron the Mendez murders. The only difference is there's no murder here. I mean, is it protecting the family wealth? Are you going to destroy their wealth, their finances? I mean, what do you really think it is?
My uncle, which is my mom's youngest brother, said to me on the phone, he said, I could see your mom doing that. Like if your two kids were telling your parents that you were using drugs, then I could see her saying, well, no kid of mine is going to be on drugs. And I said, but that's the dumbest decision ever. I said, because once you do that and you serve me a petition to have me put away in a mental institution for 360 days against my will, that court record is public documentation. And I said, and these people didn't even come and talk to me, but everybody turned away from me. Like they wiped out my whole inner circle.
You started a podcast to help other individuals to come tell their story. So I take it this isn't an isolated incident. Since you launched a podcast, you have had other individuals to come and share their story. How widespread and is this? And I'm going to say it's ridiculous because it can probably happen to anybody. So I'm not going to say it's ridiculous. Yeah. Everybody has a different story, and I'm pretty sure they shared that on your platform that you have called Unveiling Shadows Podcast. But how rampant is it now that individuals are being targeted, and what are some of the reasons that people would be targeted?
So I think that during my research, there are over 240 websites about being targeted individuals, being part of the government targeted program. It has to do with PSYOPs, COINTELPRO. And I believe that probably 75% of the population, they don't know that they're targeted, even though they are. They just think that their life took a really bad turn or many bad turns. And so I tell people there are two things that people can watch to get a better grasp of my story. There is a Netflix series called The Program, and it's about a 3-hour, one hour for three, 1 hour series for 3 series. And that the program is basically where parents are told that their children are on drugs. They're coerced into putting these children or teenagers into these institutions where they're abused physically, mentally, verbally. And that ends up back at a billionaire's ranch in the state of Utah, in southern Utah. And then they could watch the movie called I Care a Lot. And I Care a Lot is a true story about asset stripping, but they're doing it to elderly people who are fully sufficient. These people will go in, lawyers will go into the court. They'll get granted executor of the state because they're telling the court or the judge that these older people don't know what they're doing. They're suffering from dementia. and then they'll be granted executor of their estate. They can sell off all of their assets and then put them into an old folks home. So if people on this podcast are listening, if they watch those two movies and you combine them, then you would understand my story.
You know what? I find it, I'm not going to say I find it hard to believe, because
a lot of people say that
Hollywood puts it out there in plain sight. I've heard of the asset stripping with older individuals. If that can happen, your story stands just as much truth to it as well. How can the viewers reach out to you and understand and reach and be a part of your podcast platform if they're suffering or they know somebody that's going through this situation that you went through?
So if you go to my website, unveilingshadows.com, it has all of my social media handles on there. It'll allow you to schedule a podcast with me. It has a resource page for targeted individuals and a bunch of links to where you can go and do your research. And I just tell people to stay strong, because basically, if you have a master and slave society and you've got people with money that are sitting in the middle class and you want to control them to create a one world order, then you're going to wipe out the middle class first.
Deflecting the attention somewhere else. Deep. Thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show. Guys, reach out, support, do your own research. Make sure you support her. And like I said, this is her story. It could happen to you. Don't say it couldn't, because it could happen to you.
Yeah.
Look forward to having you coming back on the show and telling us more about your success with Unveiling Shadows. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been another exciting episode of the Andre the Beast Crayton Show.
Thank you. Stay strong.